just ahead on CTV News.
You have 15 minutes. I'm Noel James, and coming up on CTV News, we'll tell you who got that message and why.
Plus, a lawsuit is underway between teachers and the Department of Education.
And we sit down with a County Council District 5 candidate.
Those stories and more on CTV News starting now.
Good evening. This is CTV News for February 27th. I'm Katara Jones.
And I'm Michaela Newton. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, after a tumultuous week of more federal layoffs, the U.S. Agency for International Development opened its doors one last time.
CTV's Noel James is at the agency headquarters. Noel, what can you tell us?
Fired USAID employees have just 15 minutes each to pack up their personal belongings from the agency headquarters in Washington. Now, this comes just after 4,000 staffers were put on leave on Monday. But I want you to take a look at the extraordinary scene behind me. Some of those employees and some supporters came out to give their support to USAID. Now, of importance to note, staffers have all of Thursday and Friday to clear their workspaces. USAID is one of the biggest targets of President Trump's aggressive campaign to downsize the federal government. Led by Elon Musk, the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, dismantled the agency, saying without evidence that its work is wasteful. Sounds of cheers and applause brought some solace to the somber environment. Some in tears in this moving moment as workers ferry their belongings out of the agency offices. While others are still processing the layoffs.
Many of us who worked at USAID, we loved USAID. We believed in the mission, we believed in what we were doing, and to see it be attacked and called a criminal organization, to see it torn apart is horrifying and heartbreaking.
Thank you for recognizing this moment, because we must respond. We must say what is the next thing that we have to do.
Some are trying to be strong for their colleagues and friends, figuring out what's next.
The work that we were doing in terms of giving people access to power on the continent creates jobs. It creates economic growth in countries that need it.
We're all mobilizing to help each other. We're such a strong community because we do this work not for the paycheck. We do it because we're all idealistic and we want to make the world a better place.
Closer home, the impact is deeply felt as nearly 10% of Maryland's workforce is employed by the federal government. Now, the administration says it's cutting up to 90% of USAID's foreign contracts and up to $60 billion in American assistance worldwide. I'm Noel James in Washington for CTV News.
All right, Noel, thanks so much for that report. Meanwhile, Trump orders more massive federal job cuts.
The federal government is bracing for sweeping job cuts as President Trump orders agencies to downsize, calling the workforce bloated and inefficient. A new memo directs agencies to lay off employees, eliminate positions, and consolidate programs, with first plans due on March 13th.
Trump says the EPA could cut 65% of its staff, but Democrats, labor unions, and even some Republicans warn this could cripple government services.
We're cutting down the size of government. We have to. We're bloated. We're sloppy. We have a lot of people that aren't doing their job. We have a lot of people that don't exist. You look at Social Security as an example. I mean, you have so many people in Social Security where if you believe it, they're 200 years old. And what we're doing is finding out, are checks going out for that? And is somebody cashing those checks who's maybe 35 years old, okay? So there's a lot of dishonesty, there's a lot of fraud.
With legal challenges expected, agencies have until September 30th to implement the cuts, marking a major shakeup in federal operations. And a new report shows that there has been a spike in Americans filing for unemployment benefits. According to the Labor Department, applications for jobless benefits increased by 22,000 to 242,000 last week. Officials say these numbers are the highest it's been in 3 months. Analysts anticipate that in the next coming weeks, the department will start to see the recent federal layoffs show up in their reports. Now, the unemployment rate in January hit a low of 4%.
Well, the Trump administration has announced a plan aimed at mass deportations without the use of agency resources for physical removals. A plan announced by the Department of Homeland Security is a campaign to compel people in the U.S. illegally to register online with the U.S. government and then self-deport. The administration said those who fail to register will be subject to a fine, imprisonment, or both. It's unclear what the fine would be or the charges that led to imprisonment. Now, the registration is expected to be up and running in the next coming days. And Maryland's House delegation voted overwhelmingly against a Republican budget on Tuesday, which slashes $2 trillion in spending, including more than $800 billion from Medicaid, a lifeline for 1.5 million Marylanders. The bill passed 217 to 215, with all Maryland Democrats voting no, while Representative Andy Harris backed it, calling it a win for border security and Trump's tax cuts. Democrats argue the plan cuts health care while handing out $4.5 trillion in tax breaks. Now, with Medicaid on the chopping block, the budget faces a tough fight in the Senate.
Maryland lawmakers are pushing a bill that will prevent a governor from being embroiled in a conflict of interest scandal. Senate Bill 723 would require the governor to put their personal financial holdings in a blind trust approved by the State Ethics Commission within 6 months of taking office. The governor could choose to divest from any interest that could cause a potential conflict of interest. Now, this comes after Time magazine claimed former Governor Larry Hogan engaged in conflicts of interest involving his real estate brokerage firm while in office.
Well, a legal challenge is underway over the U.S. Department of Education's recent letter threatening to cut federal funding for schools using race-conscious practices in admissions, programming, and scholarships. Teachers' unions filed a complaint earlier this week in response to the letter. The Dear Colleague letter has raised questions from schools nationwide, sparking concern about its impact on diversity and inclusion efforts. Now, Maryland State Superintendent Carrie Wright said in an interview that the state often gets Dear Colleague letters from the U.S. Department of Education, but these letters don't have the force of law and aren't the same as statutes.
A Temple Hills woman is in custody for the murder of her boyfriend. 59-year-old Sheila Robinson is charged with first and second-degree murder of 67-year-old Antonio Dillard. Police found Dillard suffering from gunshot wounds in an apartment building last Wednesday. He later died at a hospital. Robinson was arrested on Monday and is being held on a no bond status.
All right, well, you're watching CTV News. I'm Michaela Newton.
And I'm Katara Jones. Still to come, we're still celebrating Black History Month.
That's right, and after the break, we speak to a local man who helped to integrate Prince George's County schools. That story and more right after the break.
Feeling isolated and alone. That makes you feel hopeless. Know this. We're here to help if you want us to. It's never too early or too late to ask for help with a drinking problem. Alcoholics Anonymous. There is a way out. For more information, visit aa.org and download the Meeting Guide app.
Welcome back. With cold temperatures driving up energy costs, Pepco is extending its bill relief programs. With a March extension, customers will pay no late fees, get longer repayment plans, and avoid service disconnections for non-payment. Now, Pepco is also waiving deposits for those reconnecting service. And customers can find energy-saving programs, financial assistance, and bill flexibility tools at pepco.com/bill support.
A new poll shows that Marylanders are in favor of more energy generation options. The UMBC poll has found that 4 in 5 people support expanding solar energy. A whopping 74% of residents surveyed are in favor of using natural gas for electricity generation. However, only 42% would not support more coal-burning plants across Maryland. The survey comes at a time as Maryland homeowners are seeing a major spike in their utility bills.
And Governor Wes Moore has proposed lowering Maryland's estate tax exemption to simplify the tax code, but some lawmakers and estate planners are worried it could hit more middle-class families. They say it could potentially undercut his broader tax reform plan. Now, there's also concern that this move could hurt Maryland's reputation as a high-tax state, encouraging residents to move their wealth elsewhere. Maryland is the only state with both an estate and an inheritance tax, though filers who face both can apply for the inheritance tax as a deduction.
Billions of funding with little to show for it has promoted some state leaders to heavily look into the Department of Information Technology. The department has been overseeing major IT projects in Maryland since 2002. However, some state leaders say the department has yielded unsatisfactory results, such as poor project management. State Senator Katie Fry-Hester, who sponsors the bill, says the current system lacks accountability for delivering projects on time and on budget.
Well, the creator of a traffic camera that can detect distracted drivers using AI wants to bring the technology to Prince George's and Montgomery counties. Maryland lawmakers are now considering a bill which will launch a pilot program in the 2 counties if passed. One of the co-founders of ABIO is a supporter of the bill, which will hopefully bring a solution to Montgomery County's leading cause of vehicular accidents and fatalities. Maryland lawmakers who oppose the bill say they are concerned about the intrusiveness of the technology.
Prince George's County may be a predominantly black county now, but it wasn't always that way.
Right. Tonight, as we continue to celebrate Black History Month, we introduce you to a Fort Washington man who helped integrate a local school. Byron Scott has our story.
It was in 1963. My first day was an awakening.
It was 62 years ago when then 12-year-old McKinley Hayes entered the 7th grade at what was then Suitland Junior High School. He says he was one of only 2 black students.
So on that first day, I remember vividly, I was called several names. I was called you need to go home, get out of here. And rocks and stones were thrown at me.
Hayes entered the school 11 years after the landmark Brown v. Board of Education Supreme Court ruling. He says his first days at Suitland were tough, but he was determined to make it.
Just said, Mom and Dad, I'm going to give it one more day. And one more day ended up being graduating from Suitland High School and dealing with the situation at junior high.
Hayes says it took months before white students warmed up to him.
It's not that I went through the struggle every day as heavily as I did. And finally, over time, I was accepted. And they said, you know, he's all right.
Hayes was at Suitland High School from 1965 to 1968. He says just his presence had an impact on his fellow students.
That I am just as good and worthy as the person that sits to my left and to my right. That I felt that I made a contribution to the school and to the community.
Hayes attended the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, Bowie State University. He would go on to teach school and eventually became an administrator at Suitland High School.
One of the benefits, which was a difficult benefit, but others will gain from, is that no child or no one will ever have to go through the experiences that I went through. And as an administrator, I would make things better for staff and students as a whole.
Byron Scott, CTV News.
The school board is honoring Hayes tonight at its meeting at 7 at the Wayne K. Curry Administration Building. And still to come on CTV News.
We sit down with the candidate for the County Council District 5 seat, Shayla Adams Stafford.
We'll be right back.
The doctor said I only had a 29% chance to find you. But I knew you were out there. Every night, even when my heart was sad, I wished for you to sign up. I got so sick that I couldn't go to school, but I still made people laugh. But when we matched, it was the best day ever. Dear donor, your blood stem cells saved me from leukemia. Thank you forever and ever and ever. Sincerely, Owen.
Experience the true joy of saving a life at nmdp.org.
The special primary election for the County Council District 5 seat is less than a week away. CTV News is continuing our coverage to bring you exclusive interviews with each of those candidates.
And joining us in the studio today is candidate Shayla Adams Stafford. Ms. Adams Stafford, thanks so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So if elected, what do you think that you can bring to the table that will improve Prince George's County as a council member?
Yes, definitely. I think what I bring is my expertise as a business owner. One of the things that we hear from residents as we go from door to door is consistently that they want to see their property taxes lowered. Well, we'll do that by increasing our commercial tax base. And because I am a business owner, someone who runs a payroll every month, I know what business owners need to succeed. They need access to capital. We also need opportunities for people to move their businesses from their homes into actual retail locations. And we need participatory development that actually speaks to what the community wants, not just what a developer says or someone who doesn't even live here thinks should go here. And so that's what I think I can bring.
And having good schools is an economic engine for both businesses and homeowners. Yes. How would you like to make improvements to the Prince George's County school system?
Absolutely. So, you know, I was recently on the school board, and the work that I did there was primarily around helping to develop and construct 14 new schools. As you know, many of our schools are over 50 years old, and so we need to fully fund our capital improvement budget, not shy away from the blueprint work. That's very important for us to ensure that we're abiding by that, but also thinking about how can we find some areas where we may have some inefficiencies. So, for example, while I was a school board member, I pushed for us to have an audit of our transportation program. We found out we had over 13 different school start times. We were able to, through that audit, find out that we ultimately only needed 3. And over time, when the results of that audit are fully implemented, it'll save the school system and the county over $70 million.
Even though you were a school board member, I noticed that on your website, your platform doesn't mention education as a top priority, but do you think that education is one of your top priorities if elected?
Oh, absolutely. Anyone who knows me knows that I've been an educator for my entire career, and also that's what my company does. We train educators across the country in culturally responsive practices. Education is a top priority, and I think that we can better use county services to meet some of those goals. For example, literacy. One of the things I did here in the county was develop our first Saturday Literacy Academy by partnering with Parks and Planning. That was at no cost to the school system. And while we're facing this budget deficit, we will need more partnerships like that in order to reach our educational goals.
You know, the county is, as you said, facing a $170 million budget deficit. If elected, how would you go about addressing those issues without cutting those essential services?
Right. I don't think that we need to cut essential services or raise taxes. I think we need to go through the budget and find areas where we can save. And that's what I did as the chair of the Operating Budget and Fiscal Affairs Committee on the school board, which oversaw a $2.6 billion budget. And when we say looking for areas of efficiency, for example, as I mentioned with our transportation, we were wasting tons of money by not having an efficient system. Additionally, I called for a maintenance audit, having an opportunity to double back and see where are we failing with our maintenance work, where can we provide more quality control and oversight so that we are not, spending money frivolously. And also, we have a lot of change orders that come through the school system, and those change orders are in the millions of dollars. Having a closer eye on that from the county council level can possibly help us to cut down on costs and save us millions as well.
The dispute over land use of Hospital Hill between Bladensburg and Cheverly is a huge topic right now. What changes do you see or that the District 5 needs right now?
In terms of just development?
Yes.
Right. I think we need to diversify our zoning codes so that we can have more mixed-use facilities and areas. And as you think about development in that area, that's really going to be sort of the entry point into Prince George's County as it sits there right on 295. And so we need to have development that the people want. And that would mean really working with the community there to see what types of stores that they need, helping to get enough density there to have enough foot traffic so we attract the type of stores that we want, but also leveraging our EDC and going directly to those stores and those retailers and saying, hey, this is why you should come to our county and not waiting for them to come to us. We need to really be proactive. And as someone who is a business owner, I know how to go out and do that type of work.
Crime is a big issue here in Prince George's County. Many residents, homeowners, business people are concerned about crime. How would you push to improve crime in Prince George's?
Right. So I think that some of the work I did on the school board was about looking at some of the root causes of crime and the preventative measures that can be taken. I think that when we looked at some of the, for example, carjackings that were happening about a couple of years ago, which, there are still those happening, but there was a prevalence of them. I pulled together a convening of leaders from across the county to really think about who are committing these carjackings and why. And it really was coming down to several young people who are not getting their basic needs met. They're not connected to the basic resources and social services that they need. And so I would start off by information gathering, doing a needs assessment, finding out how can we support those young people that are committing those crimes, and looking to other neighboring jurisdictions on how they provide centers that can provide those resources and support to young people, and also helping students get access to high-wage, high-demand careers. If you're working a low-wage job or don't have a job at all, you would be more susceptible to doing those types of activities. One thing I created on the board was the Blacks in Government program that helps students get jobs directly in the federal government.
Right now, affordable housing is a huge issue in the county. A townhome runs about $400,000. But what is your stance on affordable housing?
We need housing for all. We need housing for our first responders. We need housing for nurses, housing for teachers. And we can do that by also looking to neighboring jurisdictions on how they're leveraging voucher programs to provide that housing option for people that need it the most. Housing can come with not only a voucher, but perhaps maybe a utility bill subsidy or just a down payment on a first home. But we have to be more proactive about providing affordable housing and also thinking about our seniors. As we are planning to see these cuts in Medicaid, our seniors need to be housed, and many of them are on a fixed income. And thinking about how we as the county can develop housing ourselves. We don't always have to look outward. What capacity do we have within ourselves to develop housing units that can be affordable for everyone?
Now, if you were elected, how would you work to better health care services for Prince George's County residents?
I think that we need to lean more into community-based health resources and systems. While I was on the board, I passed $1 million amendment to revitalize our community-based, school-based health clinics. Montgomery County has 17, Baltimore has 20. We have 4, and they're not up and running right now. These are health centers that are tied to schools where anyone that has a child at that school, or maybe even a grandchild, can go get immunized, get proper health checks, their blood pressure checks. We need to expand those types of services, especially for members of our community that can't gain access to health care. Expanding community health services is something that would be a priority of mine.
Well, thank you, Ms. Adams Stafford, for coming by.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And the special primary election will be held on March 4th.
Make sure you tune in tomorrow as we introduce candidate Fred Price, only on CTV News.
And stay tuned, Simon Buggs has our Thursday sports page.
That's right, and today he's dishing on some college hoops.
Hey sports fans, stay right there because I have some college hoops highlights that you're gonna love. Back in a moment.
The drug scene in Maryland is changing. Fentanyl and xylazine are being added to street drugs, and you may not even know it. Xylazine is not even intended for humans, and fentanyl is an opioid 50 times stronger than heroin and contributed to over 80% of overdose deaths in our state. Anyone who uses drugs, even occasionally, is at risk of overdose. To learn more, visit stopoverdose.maryland.gov or call or text 988.
Hope you grabbed the seat because it's finally time for your Thursday sports page. The Bowie State men's basketball squad looked to advance to the next round of the CIAA tournament last night as they took the court against Virginia State. The Bulldogs started the game off well as this reverse layup by guard Warren Muganda while in transition, and this shot from downtown by star player Elijah Davis helped the black and gold jump out to an early 9-4 lead. Although they were down, the Trojans kept the game close and stayed within arm's length of Bowie as the quarter went on. Eventually, VSU not only closed the gap, but they also took the lead as this costly turnover by Davis turned into 3 points for the Trojans. And now the team was up 17-15 on the Bulldogs. The black and gold began to fall behind even more as they couldn't stop the bleeding, being down as much as 12 at one point. Bowie was able to shave VSU's lead to single digits going into halftime down 37-28. In the second half, the Bulldogs continued to hang around and kept VSU's lead manageable. And this turnover by the Trojans that led to a layup for Muganda cut the team's deficit to just 4 points with a little over 2 minutes left in the ball game. And with 40 seconds left in the game, Davis made this clutch basket to make the score 70-67 in favor of the Trojans. Soon after, Davis came through for his team again, making another timely bucket to make the Trojans lead just 74-72 with 13 seconds left in the ball game. But Bowie was unable to complete their comeback as the Trojans sent the Bulldogs home early, beating them 78-72.
I'm so proud of this basketball team. I'm so proud of this basketball team. A year full with different adversities. They fought through every time. They believed in what we did from day one. And it's just tough when you lose a game like that. We tip our hats to Virginia State. Tonight, they were the better team tonight, but you can't take anything away from our guys. They fought.
To be around Coach Brooks and this team, this is probably the best team and funnest team I've been on my 4 years. So this one kind of hurt. I want to give my respect to Virginia State. He played a hell of a game.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, Coach, for bringing me on this year. It's been one fun ride. A great team. I'm pretty upset that we lost because we got a pretty solid and fun group of guys who just play together, and I've never had this much talent around me and guys that just love each other like that, so it really hurts to go out like this.
Better luck next year, guys. And wrapping up sports, the Terps men's basketball team fell to Big Ten rival Michigan State last night. The Spartans hit a buzzer beater to take down Maryland 58-55. Maryland will try and get back on the winning side against Penn State on Saturday at noon. And that wraps up your Thursday sports page. Simon Buggs, CTV Sports. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Simon. Now let's get a look at our 3-day weather forecast. Tonight is going to be mostly cloudy with wind gusts up to 23 miles per hour. Tomorrow will be nice and sunny with a high of 55. Saturday is going to be partly sunny with a high of 61. Sunday it'll be sunny with a high of 39 and a low of 23.
And for our community calendar, tomorrow afternoon, Parks and Rec is hosting a Black History Celebration Talent Showcase. Come enjoy a dynamic and inspiring showcase of kids transforming into their favorite Black historical heroes. The event takes place from 6 to 9 p.m., but for more information, contact 301-583-2400.
And that wraps up CTV News for now. Thanks for joining us.
We'll see you again tomorrow. Have a good night.